Hey everyone, Mark here at the Action Figuratorium, and this is going to be the third video I have made on HasLab. And in this one, what I'm talking about is HasLab, and any other toy company for that matter who's doing crowdfunding and aggressive pre-orders, are they in fact outsourcing retailing, not to stores like Target or Walmart, but are they now outsourcing the retailing to you, the end user? Find out after the little music thing. Hello everyone, and welcome to this episode of Toy Talk. I am going to be talking about HasLab primarily, but this kind of applies to any toy company out there, big or small, who is doing crowdfunding, that is raising money and also getting quantity of products they need to produce in advance. That's a big part of this equation. Right? It's not necessarily just the pre-order, it's the sort of tallying up sales ahead of time and applying to essentially what we're seeing is the removal of the middleman, the retailer, the store where normally toy products are sold, whether it's big box stores like Target, Walmart, or if it's maybe indie retailers, comic book stores, hobby stores, toy stores, mom and pop, brick and mortar stores, that kind of thing. And are they now outsourcing that straight to the individual who has to be a reseller who buys directly from, like, let's say HasLab now to stock it in their store? So I have a list of notes, and I will be occasionally looking down at them. That's nothing nefarious, just letting you guys know that I did write this out ahead of time. So the first thing that you need to realize about this concept, right, is you need to understand what it is that the company Uber did to understand what is going on in the toy industry. So what Uber did, right, what made them different from other taxi services is not that they have an app that allows users to more easily schedule taxi service, right? That's something that taxi companies could have done if they'd wanted to. They still had, you know, the old system of a brick and mortar place with a dispatcher who takes phone calls and then sends vehicles out. That's the old model. Yeah, that's definitely played a part in it in terms of like getting people to use an app like Uber as opposed to people who would have taken, you know, called a taxi before. But what Uber did that was different was they did not have to purchase a fleet of vehicles to become a taxi service, okay? I don't think you guys realize this, but this is a huge deal. Take a company like, for example, let's say FedEx. Okay, FedEx is a delivery service, and so they have a huge fleet of trucks that they had to buy or at least get a loan for to acquire them. And they can't just get like one or two at a time. They need all of them for them to be in every major city and to go everywhere. And all these trucks require, well, obviously drivers, you know, but they require maintenance, they require people working on them, they require parts. They, of course, require fuel, which is why if you see a company like UPS or FedEx, if they go from, like, say, diesel or gas burning vehicles to electric, because let's say they save 25 cents a mile or 5 cents a mile, if you times that by the amount of miles each truck drives and then times that by the amount of trucks they have in their fleet, these are huge numbers to just, you know, switch to different things that shave a couple cents off here or there when it scales up, right? So if you think about how much money something like FedEx puts into to fuel, right? Well, then think about how Uber is able to create a taxi service without buying a single car, okay? That's pretty wild. So let's switch over to these guys. I'm pointing now, yeah, right there. There you go. I'm pointing at the HasLab site where we're on now, and we're looking at the Star Wars Black Series Rancor. This is such like a $49 toy, which if someone said, "Oh yeah, this is $49," I would be like, "What? This is crap. This is crap, and they don't deserve to sell this for $349." But that's another video. Let's get back to my original topic here, and let's hope that maybe I should cut that and paste it into some other video I make. So what we're talking about here is these guys no longer have to prototype a product, focus group an idea, get together, have a bunch of committees sign off on what the toys are to be made for the upcoming year, and then take that around to retailers and say, "Look, Target, here's what we're coming out with. It's called the Star Wars Black Series, and it's Wave 7, 8, and 9, and it's going to have these key figures, and then Target says, okay, and they look at the numbers of what they've sold, and I'm sure there's some numbers that are shared, and they figure out how many they're going to buy, how many they're going to need in each store, how many stores, and from that, the toy company is able to figure out year in advance, minimum, they're going to have to figure out how to, how many they need to make, plus taking it into the idea that the factory that makes them has a minimum order, and so they're going around and they're working out how many they need to order. They're taking orders on how many they're going to sell. They're thinking about all the different places that they can sell them and not sell them, because it can hurt the business if they're everywhere. That's why companies do these exclusives. That's why the Target exclusives, the Walmart exclusives are part of the bargaining chip. When they take on a big order from HasBro for Star Wars, they're going to want, sales is all about the guy who is selling giving something up. That's always why there's a coupon. That's always why there's a discount. That's always why there's a haggle. And when you're haggling with someone, you oftentimes will create something of no value to you, a lot of value to them that you can give up, right? I used to sell guitars, did it all the time. People would come in, they would want to get a free cable with it, right? And you kind of make your money on cables. So you had to have some cheap freebie cables, ones that came with the guitar from the factory, that were pretty much just good for tying down the trunk of a car, right? It's works as a bungee rather than a guitar cable. You tell them okay, great, you buy the guitar, I will give you this for free, this cable. If you want to buy a better cable, give you a great deal, give you a discount, that kind of thing. Same thing with what they're doing here. They go around, they're taking orders from Targets, they're taking orders from Walmart, they're taking orders from these different toy stores. They're offering them what they can get as a dealer, how many they need to order. They're going to have minimum orders for Target as well. Target is going to want something. They're going to give them the exclusive. They're like, look, Target, you're going to get the exclusive Jar Jar Binks at no cost to you. This is, it's not a new concept. So they do all the pre-selling, all the numbers, and then the factory can make it, and they know how many to make, and it's pretty much just bean counting. It's just logistics at this point. It's just people churning through, looking at the numbers, with occasionally somebody who's high up maybe making a tip, saying, well, we think this movie's going to be really big, let's order a few more, or this is, There might be a little bit of that, and there could be some politics, but for the most part, they get all the numbers, the factory makes it. Okay, so when we go to these guys, what's happening here is we are seeing, you know, essentially how many they want. This is some number that supposedly if they sell 9,000 of these Rancors, that's going to cover the cost of the molds, the prototyping, HR, the salespeople, the guys who do the website, the graphic designers who do the box. Everyone's going to get paid if they can sell 9,000 of these. To me, that sounds a little suspect, right? Based upon how corporate and how many hands there are. If it was just like you know, one of these like small companies that make these kind of retro Star Wars things, like Smith Lord Creations. I don't know any of this stuff. I'm just kind of pulling off things that I've seen in other people's videos, things like that. Yeah, I could see 9,000 for them to break even. For a big company, only 9,000 of these at $349. This is a $49 toy. So that number right there means that either the number is insanely huge for what the thing is, or that they actually are just doing this as PR and they're hoping to get 9,000, and they really actually need probably like 50,000 of these to really make their corporate money, right? If it was like a small company, different. So we've got a third of the backers. Apparently this is a really long one. This is 42 days. I don't know when this officially started. Probably it's probably like a 2-month, 60-day cycle, and we're probably this far into the first month. I just checked the page actually today. I knew that this was coming out. I didn't know when it was going to go live. You know, that's how vested I am. I just am really more about the concept of, once they get the number of backers, like we saw with the Galactus, where they went way far into how many they needed, right? Crushed it, just totally crushed it. Then they can make X amount from the factory. And again, if you think that let's say Galactus came to 33,900, if you think that they're going to make 33,900 and not one more, you're wrong. They're most likely going to have a bunch extra that they're going to figure out the best strategy to go with those. Probably to replace damaged ones or things like that. They might have special deals with special boutique retailers that exist right now, like Big Bad Toy Store. I'm going to talk about kind of how they fit in the chain of what's coming up, and how these guys, how they might make out great or they might get screwed. We'll figure that out. But anyways, what they're doing is they're getting their numbers from the crowdfunding, and they're making them, and then they're shipping them out as sales, right? And so that's not hard to imagine. But what's happening then is that these are not going to the Targets, and they're not going to Walmarts, they're not going to retailers. So what happens is they're getting sucked up by individuals. Now what we've seen is that the individuals are not just like being the end user who's like, you know, loving and playing with this toy. It's guys who are now reselling them, and they are now effectively the retailer. And if the retailer only consists of an eBay shop, still a retailer. If they have a website, still a retailer. If they just do Etsy, they're still the retailer. If you want to get one of these things, you can't get one from the original store anymore. Those don't exist. You can only get them through a resale outlet, an eBay account, an Etsy account. Maybe somebody has their own cool online store. Like there's a guy who lives in my town named Black Ops Toys. I think it's Ops, plural. Could just be Black Op Toys. I think I would do some research on this. Seems like a cool cat. I follow his YouTube channel. I check his online store. He sells action figures and action figure parts, which is kind of cool, especially in the 1/6 scale. That's kind of my scale. It's not my scale. I love mini-mates, but I also love 1/6, and a couple of videos coming up this week on some 1/6 figures. But someone like that might go and just do this HasLab thing, buy a bunch of these Rancors, invest maybe in 10 of them, and just have them on his website and sell them from there. And he'd just have an asking price, and if that's what he gets, that's what he gets. If you put it on the auctions, they're going to go up and down based upon like supply and demand. I've talked about this in a previous video in which I said the demand is really low for this particular item, but the sales were particularly high because everyone bought multiples to resell, which means bad news for you guys. Just the way it goes. It's kind of a dice roll. You know, it's nothing about the product. The product has nothing to do with it. It's just the amount of people who bought and sold. So what we're seeing here is anyone who buys one of these things to resell it, you're now a retailer. All right, so let's say you buy one of these Rancors and you buy one for you buy a second one to sell, maybe a third one to sell because they're gonna sell great, right? The numbers are gonna be awesome on these things. Well, you're actually at this point, you're stuck with it and it's now in your inventory and you've got money vested in it and that money's ticking. And depending upon when they charged you for it, right? If a company, and this is more than just HasLab, it could be any company out there who's doing this, who does like a pre-order. If they charge you at the point on which you sign up for it and pay the price, versus like when they come in and they start shipping them, then you get your charge, right? Gives you a chance to try and, you know, maybe outrun the clock, right? Anyways, the minute you're charged for this thing and you've got it as a piece of inventory and you're acting as a store trying to sell it, it's a ticking time bomb. Every second that goes by, right, that it's not sold, you are losing money on it until it gets to a point where it's extremely collectible because, like, say 40 years goes by, in which case you get a huge return because it's probably at that point, you know, extremely rare and hard to find and then extremely expensive. But otherwise, if it's just a regular product, like say it's a pair of socks or something, you bought a whole bunch of socks to resell, like 20 pairs of socks, and they're just sitting around and your money's vested in it and time's ticking. If they don't sell, you're losing money. Well, the same thing goes with the Rancor. Same thing goes with Galactus. Galactus and socks are no different, people. If that's the way you think, that widgets act different because you love toys and you're a toy collector, you're naive. You're extremely naive, and you're not realizing that all it is a pair of socks and you vested money into it and the time is ticking and you got to get your money out. And that is why toys go on clearance at big box stores like Walmart, like Target. If after a certain point they're not sold, they need their money back, they get rid of them as fast and as cheap as they can, simply to get their money back out to put it into the next wave, because they're constantly buying and selling, and the few that they don't sell, that's just runoff, and they get rid of them and they try and recoup as much money as they can. And it is not going to be any different for somebody who goes onto HasLab, buys something, Razor Crest, I don't care what it is, it's a widget, you get it, it's now product in your store, you're a retailer, you're doing resell. How much can you get for it? It's up to you, which is the next thing after getting stuck with it, right? How are you gonna get the most out of this thing? What are you gonna charge for it? Because what we're talking about is whatever you paid for this on HasLab, that is now the official wholesale cost. That is your cost as a store if you're going to be selling it, right? So if you paid $400 for Galactus, right? What are you going to sell it for? You're going to sell it for an A mark, $800? Are you going to sell it for a B mark, $700? Well, it depends upon what you are trying to make out of it and who you're competing against. And if you're competing against a lot of people, there's going to be a guy out there who's willing to take a little bit less as long as his sells, because the clock is ticking. After a while, it goes on clearance and then it goes way down because you need your money back. That is the way stores work. And if you are a reseller selling toys and you're buying these things, right? If you're picking up stuff from HasLab, you are buying these things, you are an official store, and you need to run like a store. You need to work like a store, and what stores do is clearance, and that means on these things, these cherished things, these golden amazing things, going to go on clearance. It's going to happen. There's nothing wrong with it. Doesn't mean it sucks. No one's saying it's a bad product. No one's saying you're a terrible store. We're just saying that's the mechanics of a business. And if you ignore that, right, if you ignore that, you're probably going to get hurt. There's probably a few people who bought the Galactus, who bought the Sentinel, who bought the Razor Crest, who are buying the Rancor, anybody who bought a Transformer. There's probably a lot of those people out there who bought them and love the product, who got it, but there's probably a lot of people out there who bought it just to become a reseller who are getting burned. They're losing their money, or they're not making back enough margins, right? Yeah, they may get their money back, but they may have sat on it a really long time, and their money could be making more money somewhere else. So, really what we're talking about is this now the new retail? Is this the new Uber? Is the death of the brick and mortar store approaching, right, to where everything is just going to be created with as many units as needed and then outsourced to individuals who are now acting as the retailer? And again, they're not a physical retailer. They're an online retailer. They could just be an eBay account, could be an online store, could be multiple things. And then the existing online retailers like Big Bad Toy Store or Dorkstar Toys. Is that right? That's not right. Sorry. You would think. Anyways, are these guys going to get in on this? They kind of get in on it with the Four Horsemen Mythic Legions and Cosmic Legions. That stuff all goes to Kickstarter first. I noticed that the Four Horsemen have stopped doing Kickstarter. They're now at a point where they just do pre-orders, which is kind of like a Kickstarter. And so people are buying, you know, the pre-order stuff first because it's cheapest. When pre-order closes, then I noticed that pre-order opens up for toy stores, and that allows people who missed the original pre-order, who just came along, didn't realize they're a fan, now they feel bad they missed out on it. They can do a pre-order through Big Bad Toy Store, and it's a little bit more expensive. It's definitely a bump up, and I don't know that you get all kind of the freebies that you get when you do the pre-orders. I noticed that on their pre-orders for the Four Horsemen, they would unlock different things, and they would do this without telling us what the goals are or how close we are or anything. They would just announce it, which I thought was cool, because they're not using that as a carrot and a stick to try and drive sales, to try and, like, you know, try and get more people to buy this so you guys can all get a free carrot. You know, it's like, nah, carrot's weak. Is like Big Bad Toy Store, are they going to be able to buy HasLab products, like as many units as they want of the Rancor, but for less money, so that they can have a chance at being a reseller of these sort of on-demand crowd-funded toys, and still have a big enough margin to make their money? We'll see. We'll see if this stuff starts showing up at some of these online shops. But for the most part, I want you guys to just think about how the brick and mortar store is just being kind of wiped away, and they're just outsourcing the reselling, essentially the e-retailing, to the individual now, and they're doing it by making us buy in where our wholesale is their retail. So with that, we'll catch you guys on the next one.